Hilda Solís es una política que ha trabajado como secretaria de Estado de los Estados Unidos bajo la administración de Obama y delegada de la Cámara de Representantes.
I would like to first bring up to the podium Hilda Solís.
También hizo historia al convertirse en la primera latina electa para el Senado del Estado de California.
I, Hilda Solís,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California.
Ahora es supervisora del primer distrito para el Condado de Los Ángeles.
Felicidades.
Gracias.
Hilda se graduó de la Universidad Politécnica de Pomona y obtuvo una maestría en Administración Pública de la Universidad del Sur de California. En el Congreso, Hilda se enfocó en expandir el acceso a servicios de salud asequibles, proteger el medio ambiente y mejorar las vidas de las familias trabajadoras. Hilda es reconocida en el sector de energía limpia. En el 2009, Hilda escribió la Ley de Empleos Verdes, que proveyó fondos para trabajadores de cuellos verdes para veteranos, trabajadores desplazados, jóvenes en riesgo e individuos que son parte de familias que están por debajo del 200% de la línea federal de pobreza. En el 2016, Hilda y la supervisora Janice Hahn escribieron una propuesta para crear un fondo para proporcionar la representación legal para inmigrantes indocumentados del Condado de Los Ángeles que se enfrentaban a la deportación, pero que no podían pagarle a un abogado. Hija de inmigrantes de Nicaragua y México, Hilda nació en Los Ángeles y ha dedicado su carrera a servir a los 2 millones de habitantes de la comunidad que representa, donde la mayoría de ellos son inmigrantes y latinos. Hilda Solís, bienvenida a Raíces en 2 Países.
Bienvenidos nuevamente a Raíces en 2 Países. Para mí es un grato honor darle la bienvenida a la supervisora Hilda Solís, una mujer a la que yo admiro y además, recuerden ustedes, ella fue la primera mujer latina en servir en un gabinete presidencial. Welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I just love that you were able to observe our youngins, our millennials, our future, our next generation, try to give us so much information so that the dreamers don't lose hope. And I think it's perfect that you're here today because your story has a lot to say to all those young people who would like to someday be able to accomplish what you have been able to accomplish. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Tell us about, I know about that counselor that told you once that you would never be able to go to college or to a university. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I can tell you that at my high school, the majority of students were Latino at the time. And of course, you had some counselors who would identify students who could be potentially college material and others that would go into the military or go work or whatever. And I was, I think, in the category where, well, Hilda, you're probably going to go work, maybe be an office clerk is what, you know, what our counselors were telling me. And in fact, the counselor said, why don't you become a secretary or follow along the same path as your older sister? So we were pretty much tracked, what you call tracked, into different careers. And at the time, I also had another teacher who was also a counselor, Mr. Sanchez. And he was very special because he was somebody I knew since I was in the 7th grade and was very, very fond of helping young people think outside the box. And he told me, Hilda, you can go to college if you want. And I said, how's that going to happen? He goes, because I'll help you. There's a process, there's applications. You can apply for financial aid. Because the first thing that came to my mind was, how was I going to afford to go? There were 7 children, mom and dad worked in factories, and there was just no way to do that. And he said, no problem, we'll work on it if you really want to do it. So after I went through the process, I went back to that other counselor who said all I could be is a secretary.
I love it.
And he I mean, I think he was dumbfounded because I had an admittance letter to go to Cal Poly Pomona, pretty much a full scholarship, Cal grants, loans, and everything I needed. And I was very fortunate to get a 4-year college education at Cal Poly Pomona in political science.
What a great story. Do you hear that? So many of you are out there asking, am I going to make it? I don't have status. What's going to happen with DACA? I don't have money to go to college. And look where you are, a role model to all of you. So please don't give up. Always keep fighting for your dreams because
Jessica,
it's possible.
I forgot to tell you the most important part. Now when I go and speak to students and audiences, I tell them, well, that counselor was halfway right. because while he wanted me to be a secretary, I will always remain and retain the title of Secretary of the United States of Labor under the United States government.
I love it. Yeah, Jessica, it's okay. You can clap. We have Jessica Hernandez there celebrating you. That's wonderful. I love it. So that's definitely a great story to tell. Immigration laws are changing in California, as we know. Leading state in immigration reform. How can we learn from those changes and apply them to a national level nowadays?
Well, I think some years ago, I remember being involved in fighting 187 when Pete Wilson and others wanted to take away our rights of having even undocumented children go to school, get public health care. And we got out in the streets and we fought. While we didn't win that initiative, we did win in court. And the court is really where I think we have to always remind ourselves that we have justice, we have a court system, a judicial system. But more importantly, now we have more legislators, and now we have protections for young people to be able to go without having to pay out-of-state tuition, to go to a college or university, to also receive assistance and to have status here. Now, where I'm at the county government, we're also trying to provide protections in a different way that's never happened before. Under the history of LA County, we've created an Office of Immigrant Affairs. We also have created for the first time a legal LA fund that we have partnered with community foundations and also with the city of LA. But this is the first time that the County of Los Angeles said, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to put in $3 billion to help provide protection for DACA, DAPA, women who are refugees, women who are victims of domestic violence, to get legal representation. And that will happen in the next month. So there'll be different groups out there, some of those that we know that work with us now in the immigrant community, that will be there to assist people fill out their paperwork and help to litigate and do whatever is necessary to keep people here.
That's wonderful that you mentioned that. The help is always there. But I need to ask you for a favor. There are people out there in Texas, which, as you know, have this different laws now that are definitely against our community, that could also be actually used for racial profiling. And as you mentioned, Prop 187 here was definitely very painful to our community. Right. What do you tell someone in Texas who's having to deal with those horrible laws? What kind of hope do you want to tell them not to give up? In your own words, since you've been throughout the fight all these years.
Well, I would say, as my father would say, no te dejas.
Lindo.
And, you know, ponle ganas, you know, fight for what you believe in. And always remember that you can help inspire other people. Not everyone has to come from our own community to come and help us fight against when there's injustice. This is not just an immigration issue, it's a civil rights issue. So we have partners in the LGBT community, in the African American community, in the Asian community, even in the white populations where there are progressives. You have to build those coalitions. And the religious denominations who also know that oppression is not good for anyone.
Muy bien dicho, la unión es súper importante. Lo bonito de esta conversación que estoy teniendo con la supervisora Hilda Solís es que ella nomás no es alguien que está en la política, que te puede decir, yo empecé hace algunos años y bueno, recién estoy luchando por los inmigrantes. Ella estuvo aquí durante los años en los cuales teníamos la proposición 187 que, como bien lo dijo, iba a quitar la educación a nuestros hijos, iba a cerrar las puertas a toda persona indocumentada, pero nunca dejó de luchar, y ahora California se considera uno de los estados que más abre las puertas para los inmigrantes. Así que personas de Texas, como se los acaba de decir la supervisora Solís, no pierdan la esperanza, la lucha siempre va a continuar. Y quiero recordarles que sigan usando el hashtag que nos han pedido los Dreamers hoy día, que tenemos que usar, y los hashtags son hashtag All for Dreamers y hashtag Todo por los Dreamers. Y como le dijo la supervisora Solís, no solamente es por los Dreamers ahora, pero se sigue la lucha por toda persona, por toda familia que en este momento necesita quedarse aquí unida. In 2000, you received the JFK Profile and Courage Award. A politician said you made it in an old boys network. How have you succeeded in a world that is so dominated by men? Please tell us and inspire so many young Latina women out there who can follow in your footsteps.
Well, it's not easy, and I think it's still hard, even today, even more so when you have a president who doesn't give respect and credence to women, especially women of color. But I say to people like that, don't underestimate us, because women, especially Latinas, figure out another pathway, figure out another course to take, and get other people to join with you. So I said earlier about building coalitions. It's about doing that. It's about helping other people when they need something. Then when you need that favor returned, hopefully they'll be there with you. I was able to do that, but it took a lot of hard work. Nothing came easy, and I wasn't the only one fighting on these issues, but coalescing with other people helps. I can give you an example. Dolores Huerta came to me many times. She was with the United Farm Workers to help move an agenda for farm workers. And I didn't represent a farm worker area, but I knew there was injustice in how you treat women in the fields. If women were pregnant, didn't have water, didn't have sanitary, they didn't even have toilets. We fought to provide protections for women and to give them the right to be able to take breaks whenever they needed to and to protect any worker. So it's about coalescing with other groups and understanding that leadership doesn't always come from one place. It can come from the ground up, from the community, from advocates.
Well said, well said. Es importante que no solamente veamos la historia de una mujer que ahora ha llegado a ser supervisora, que trabajó en la administración del presidente Obama, pero más que eso, porque es una historia que cuando ella recibió ese gran premio que es el de JFK, por su valentía, que los políticos alrededor de ella mencionaron que ella había logrado algo en el club de los niños, o sea, en el club de los hombres, y que eso valía por dos, porque no era solamente el recibir ese premio, pero valía por dos porque en el ambiente, en esa atmósfera en la que ella se maneja a diario, ella fue sobresaliente, fue una persona en la política con excelencia. Y como ella bien lo dice, nunca debemos pensar que es un mundo de hombres o que las puertas se nos cierran porque es el men's club, ¿no? O el club de los niños, sino seguir adelante con la excelencia con la que trabajamos para llegar a alcanzar todo lo que ella alcanzó, que definitivamente es un gran ejemplo para nosotros. And Supervisor Solís, another question. Immigration is a topic that greatly concerns our community. What advice do you have for our community to support a permanent and clean immigration legislation?
I think it's going to take a while, unfortunately, because we don't command the Congress, the Senate, or the White House. And until we make changes in the Congress and the Senate, and we tip those scales, and we're not going to see any clear immigration reform. You'll see what I saw many years ago when I was in the Congress, where Republicans will try to pick apart our community and maybe give them half a loaf or less than half a loaf of what we're looking for in terms of relief. So I know the arguments right now are about giving a clean DREAM Act bill. I agree with that. We should go all the way forward on that. The president said, Trump said he would support that. Let's hold him to his word and make sure that everyone bombards his office, sending emails, telegrams, letters, and also going to the Republican members when they're off break to go visit them and let them know where they are. Because we have Latinos everywhere, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and Alabama, and South Carolina. And we are now that group of people that are helping for these communities that were blighted to thrive. Even places like Detroit and places that you would have never thought. In Utah, our community is coming up. We need to go to those Republican members and say, hey, guess what? I'm a part of your community. I make your community strong. I need your help now. And we pay taxes, by the way. So you're supposed to represent my concerns.
Me encanta. ¿Escucharon? Aunque no tengamos documentos, reconoce una persona que ha servido por muchísimos años a la comunidad latina en un nivel tan alto como lo que es la política. Acuérdense, ella trabajó en el gabinete presidencial, pero ahora como supervisora sigue sirviendo a nosotros como latinos, y yo les pido que aquí abajo en los comentarios ustedes le manden unas palabras de apoyo, unas palabras de agradecimiento, de decir gracias porque aunque has servido por tantos años y tu historia es una historia de inspiración, queremos felicitarte y que sigas adelante representándonos. Y ya escucharon, podemos tocar la puerta de nuestros congresistas y pedir ayuda y decir nosotros pagamos impuestos, así que si ella no pierde la esperanza, ¿quiénes somos nosotros para perder la esperanza? Vamos a seguir luchando definitivamente con personas como ella para que pase esa reforma migratoria algún día. The Immigrant Protection and Advancement Task Force. Many don't know what programs and resources like this exist here in Los Angeles. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That is the Office of Immigrant Affairs that we put together at the County of Los Angeles. So we have a whole team that's out there right now that has held maybe 30 or more forums on knowing your rights. Because we knew we had a lot of immigration ICE raids occurring. People need to know what their rights are. And also to help some of our DACA students prepare their applications. So we've been hosting those all over the county. We also provide protections for wage theft, because we have a lot of immigrants that aren't paid their wages, their minimum wage or overtime. And many, because of the language barriers, don't know how to go about a process of applying and emphasizing a complaint to go after a bad employer. So we're providing a lot of things that I was very familiar with, not only as a congresswoman, but also as Secretary of Labor. And we're trying to implement that at the local level. So we're trying to help our community in many ways, and not just Latinos, but also Asians, and also people that speak different languages in LA County. We have over 3 million immigrants in LA County and 1 million that are undocumented. So we have, I would say, in many ways, the bulk of the undocumented and immigrant community right here, one of the largest in the country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amigos, ¿cuántas veces ustedes nos escriben y nos dicen, necesito ayuda, necesito un foro, necesito ir a un lugar donde conocer mis derechos, necesito un lugar que pueda hablar porque, por ejemplo, mi empleador, como lo dijo la supervisora, no me pagó por mis horas de trabajo? Pues ya, aquí está la respuesta. Ustedes pueden comunicarse con las oficinas que usan específicamente, así se llama, mire, les vamos a decir y vamos a poner un comentario al terminar nuestro Facebook Live, porque se llama el Immigrant Protection and Advancement Task Force. O sea, es un equipo que ha sido puesto juntamente para proteger los derechos de los inmigrantes, porque hay tantos inmigrantes como lo mencionó la supervisora Solís. Así que por favor, a mandar sus comentarios aquí abajo, a decir muchas gracias, seguir inspirando a mujeres que nos sirven en la política, porque definitivamente las necesitamos, y de cada pregunta estamos aprendiendo todos. In this political climate, we hear negative words or negative comments, whether from other people, from the president, etc. What message of hope do you have for our community?
I would say that hate doesn't conquer the faith and well-being of our humanity, of who we are. Words can hurt, but words can also be positive. And if we think positive and know who we are, and primero es a conocer quién eres, who you are. If you know who you are, where your values are, what your history is, then you shouldn't be afraid to move forward, to do anything, to get anything done. My father always taught me that. My father was Mexicano from Veracruz. And he taught me that no matter what, when he was living here many years ago, he was discriminated against. And he would tell us about all the incidents that he would have to overcome. And he said, the thing that I want you all to remember is never be ashamed of who you are, of your Raices, never be ashamed of your culture, and always respect other people. And hopefully with that, people will respect you.
Lindo, lindo. Un padre sabio definitivamente in your life. Por eso es que la supervisora tiene raíces en 2 países. Su papá de México, veracruzano, le enseñó a no darse por vencida. Y como ustedes escucharon, le pregunté, ¿qué podemos decir a la comunidad en medio de tanta información negativa, de tantos insultos, no solamente de personas, pero también hasta de nuestro presidente? Y bien lo dijo ella, las palabras solo pueden tratar de hacernos daño, pero no van a cerrarnos las puertas, no van a evitar que nosotros seguimos luchando. Y su papá le dijo, nunca tengas vergüenza de quién eres. Y ya ustedes saben, hasta tan lejos que ha llegado, definitivamente vergüenza de ser latina no ha tenido. Así que esas son buenas noticias. Supervisor, you created a motion that declares October as Disability Pride Month here in Los Angeles, which it touches my heart because my son Josh grew up with special education needs. He went to special education his entire life, including college. He has a bachelor's now in deaf studies. And I don't know if you know this, but he's the one that interpreted your video into sign language for the deaf community. No. So it's something that,
Qué bueno.
It's a topic. Gracias.
Thank you.
Como le contaba a ella declaró como supervisora que el mes de octubre es el mes para todas aquellas personas que tienen necesidades especiales. Y me encanta porque le acabo de compartir que mi hijo Joshua no solamente pasó por educación especial todos estos años, pero también ya tiene un bachillerato y ahora es intérprete para los sordomudos, y él fue el que interpretó el video de la congresista para hablar acerca de esta parade que se viene. How do we educate ourselves about the rights of people with disabilities and those who have special needs? How do you recommend that we can learn more about this?
Well, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is try to show people that they're no different from anybody else, that they need to be integrated in our society in every part of it, whether it's education, whether it's in employment, which is very important because there's a lot of employment discrimination, and making sure that people have the same opportunities. So even though you may have a disability, and it could be in any form, it may not even show itself physically, right? but we shouldn't be discriminating. We should help people get the access and support that they need. And the county, and I know the federal government has all kinds of programs offered. We have many programs right now at our schools, and I'm delighted to hear that your son has a bachelor's degree in deaf studies. It's wonderful. I think right now, in many ways, people say to us, well, you're a minority, that's a disability. No, it's not. It's not a disability. Well, maybe you have a form of physical disability, but it shouldn't hold you back from what your goals are and what you want to do. Right now, my commissioner, Hector Ochoa, is leading this initiative. He came to me and said, Hilda, Supervisor Solis, we did last year a Disability Month walk,
Yes.
where we had people coming out. And we know if we could have it in Los Angeles, it could be even bigger because so many people came out and we didn't even understand how impactful this was. So I said, okay, I will help you, let's do it. And all these families, and especially the immigrant community, who many times our parents feel embarrassed or they're lost, they don't know where to go for help. We're here as a community to help each other, to empower each other, and to feel pride. That's what the whole event is about, feeling pride that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if someone says you have a disability or whatever, because you can overcome those barriers.
Beautiful. On behalf of my son, myself, my entire family, and all those other families who have a child with special needs, I just want to say thank you for your efforts, not only for our immigrant community, for people now that we know you also represent in your community, people with disabilities, but for the great role model that you have been to all of us all these years. May God continue to bless your path and your family. May He give you the strength, the health, and the wisdom to continue doing what you've been doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Como ustedes saben, le tuve que decir gracias, no solamente por mi hijo, por mi familia, pero por todos ustedes que tienen niños con necesidades especiales, por esa gran lucha que haya tenido por muchísimos años representándonos a nosotros como comunidad latina. Y por supuesto que también le deseo muchas bendiciones, mucha salud para ella y para toda su familia.